Hello, I am Councilwoman Kate Gallego. Welcome to our October meeting for the Sustainability, Housing, Efficiency, and Neighborhood Subcommittee. I'm joined by Councilwoman Stark in person and Councilman Waring on the phone. Thank you all for joining us. It's going to be a great meeting today with a little bit of a jobs and sustainability focus, although, as always, a diverse meeting. We have no cards from the public to begin the meeting, so I would ask for a motion on the meeting minutes from our September meeting.
I move to approve.
Second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Minutes passes unanimously. We have a short consent agenda item, consent agenda. We have a motion on that.
Move to approve.
Second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Now we moved on to community development block grants, one of our great tools for fighting poverty. And welcome Chris Hallett, our Neighborhood Services Director, to present.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. We are here on a continued item from last month for the 2018-19 CDBG Public Services and Public Facilities Request for Proposals. This is an annual process that we put out on the street requesting requests for proposals on both public services for activities that serve the low to moderate income populations, for youth, persons with disabilities, and the elderly, as well as public facilities requests for acquisition, rehab of these same facilities that serve those same populations. We have $300,000 set aside for the public facilities request for proposals and $512,000 for the public services. Now, those are the most discretionary funds that we have that serve the public services, and so we have some priority areas, I think, that have been outlined based on public input that we received, as well as council priorities that are being generated. So we're here basically to ask for the subcommittee's recommendation to move our RFP process forward for these two categories in each of their priority areas.
Thank you. Councilwoman.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I was just wondering, under our priorities, I'm hearing this more and more, the phone calls I receive, and I'm sure I'm not the only district, with regards to homeless and transient. Is there any way that we can include that as a priority? Quite frankly, I'd like to see that as a main priority. I know that we're going to roll out a program called Phoenix Cares shortly, and I want that to be a success. And I think it can be a success, but I think maybe we need a little additional funding to help that, especially with the navigators. So I'm curious as to whether or not we could potentially look at that in this request.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Stark, absolutely. Assisting the homeless, we already do that with a lot of our other public service funds, certainly as an eligible use and category. So we could have a priority area added for serving the homelessness, whether you have a separate dollar amount set aside for it, or, as you say, if there's a contract that's already met the procurement, we could most likely add on and supplement the services that are being provided through that contract.
So if I could, I would like to look at that. Again, I don't think I'm the only district hearing those calls.
We hear constantly.
Yeah, and I suspect Councilman Waring, you probably are receiving some of those calls as well with regards to our transient and homeless population. I do think we should focus on helping our Phoenix Care as it rolls out. I think that's going to be a great program, and we need to make it successful. If there's any way that we can roll that into the money that we're expending to help in the CDBG fund.
So because the community bridges was competitively procured, would that be eligible for community development block grant funding?
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, I believe, yeah, when we reviewed that with law and others, it met our procurement, it met an eligible use. It'd be supplementing, adding on to the contract on the existing services. That would be, it's an eligible use to supplement that contract, utilizing the already procured contract.
I was just at an event this morning with someone who had experienced an issue with a homeless individual, and community bridges, they called both police and community bridges got rave reviews. So
Yeah, and to add on to that, last Friday, I was out with a group of constituents around 19th Avenue in Sweetwater, and Human Services was there talking about the Navigator program and talking about how they're rolling out Phoenix Cares. And I will tell you, this neighborhood was very excited about it. So I don't know how would we have to amend the motion to that you had suggested here to include using some of the money and resources for the transient.
So, Madam Chair, Councilwoman Stark, I think Mo Gallegos is in that, I believe it costs approximately $125,000 for a team of 2. Is that correct? So if you had a particular number of teams you had in mind, you might want to amend it with that denomination in mind.
We have the 500,000 pot of money. If we did 2 teams, it would be 250,000. Could Community Bridges, do you think, meet that?
Madam Chair, the members of the subcommittee, so the full contract amount right now is $500,000. That is 4 teams of 2, along with the supervisor. We did recently ask Community Bridges, what would it take to add another team for just 40 hours, a full-time team, if you will. The way that we think of it is 40 hours, and that estimate was $120,000. So we could, negotiate how we want to do that. It is a contract that we put out in such a way that it can be expanded, so we're fine there. And so if we want to add, we can. So 1 team for 40 hours, I know would be about $120,000. Right now, what we have, Madam Chair, just to clarify, we have 4 teams, but in order for them to cover 7 days a week from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., there's really, most of the time, 1 team on schedule to be able to cover all of those times.
So 2 teams would probably equate to almost $250,000.
That is correct.
Okay, I
Yes.
think, I like to see a couple additional teams. I mean, we're a huge city, and there's a lot, it's just not happening again in one area of the city. It's all over, so I think we could probably use the 2 teams.
I think that. And do we think that Community Bridges could add 2 teams for us?
I'm certain they could. They knew, everyone that bid on this proposal knew that it was our intent, should we have funding or seek funding or be able to expand the contract, that we would. So they went into these proposals knowing that that would be the case.
Wonderful, and I think this will also be very helpful to our police department, who has so many things on their plate and would love to have people with great training working to fight homelessness.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, given what's happening in our city, and that we're just about ready to roll out Phoenix Cares. So I would like to make that a part of any motion or, requested actions.
So it would be a motion to approve staff's recommendation, except for to allocate 240,000 of the public services funds to Community Bridges.
Yes. Does that make sense?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Stark, that certainly would send a message that Phoenix does care if you take this action, so I think that'd be great. Additionally, I think there might have been another priority area the councilman was interested in adding to the motion.
So we last year had added human trafficking, which is still there, and then fighting hunger. But I guess because I think these 2 issues are so related, maybe better to just add homelessness. And
Yeah.
there's so many needs in our community, and we could spend 16 times this and still have great work to be done. But
I agree.
in times of uncertain federal funding, we'll just spend what we have.
And take advantage of it. And again, these are contracts, so that helps. I mean, so it's kind of blending of some privatization with, use of these funds. So I think it's a great idea. Do I need to? Oh,
I'm sorry, Councilwoman.
I was going to say, do I need to make a motion, or did?
If I could, Madam Chair, Councilwoman Stark, if you could make the motion generic that to add 2 teams to CBI. The reason that I say that is that when we spoke to them about adding 1 team, that's all we spoke about. I don't know what their supervision needs might be or anything like that. I just want to not have to come back to you. So if you could pose it in that way, I think it would give us the flexibility to speak with them, decide what the amount is, and then work that amount in, as opposed to a flat dollar amount. If I might
And
say.
we'll still have some money to work with the human trafficking as well, even with, okay, perfect. Okay. I'm ready to make a motion.
Perfect.
So I'd like to recommend approval as submitted by staff with the amendment to include some funds to be allocated directly to the Navigator program to help us with our Phoenix Cares program that will be rolling out. So up to 2 different teams.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously, and thank you. This pot of money, we do incredibly good work, and we've had partners who have done great things, but we got to be strategic, and we need to do more on homelessness. So thank you both for working with us to
Thank you.
make this happen. We really appreciate your responsiveness to the council.
Thank you.
And now moving on to community-wide greenhouse gas reduction goal. We will welcome Mark Hartman, our Chief Sustainability Officer.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. With me today also is Roseanne Albright, the lead for the Office of Environmental Programs, and we're together as our departments co-bringing this forward to you today. So this is really, the proposal overall is a recommendation for a community-wide greenhouse gas target to set that, and looking for this subcommittee to support us bringing that to council. So I'll get the controls here. Just kind of backing up what overall sustainability definition is that we brought forward to council was adopted along with our 2050 goals is really talking about improving quality of life for all. So that's all neighborhoods in the city for everyone, including future generations. And then as well, and can we do that while enhancing nature? Like, can we do our city posts, make nature better off as a result with all our science and all our ingenuity, make it better off as a result? So that's our overall sustainability definition adopted by the city. And so these are the 2050 goals that we adopted last year, and really looking at really great community support from those. So public support, we went out to them and said, what do you think about these as long-term outcomes of what we want to get to? 92% on average said, yes, we think these are great long-term goals. These are the outcomes that we support. And moving forward, as we've kind of gone through them, most of them are owned by various departments, have interim targets for these. So our parks has a goal for transit. Transit T2050 has goals, interim targets. Water, waste, 2020 goals for waste. But overall, a carbon neutral, we don't actually interim targets for our community. Earlier this year, we adopted a 40% to lead by example for our own operations, but nothing in the interim of what should our carbon footprint be by, say, 2025 is what we're bringing forward today. What should that look like? Many of these other goal areas will contribute to that, like Transportation 2050 is a great chance to influence it, but what should our overall goal be as we kind of look at that specifically? We have some great news from our carbon footprint. So we brought forward last year our 2012 inventory, which was our baseline, and now we've completed our 26 emissions inventory. And for buildings specifically, in the building sector called stationary energy, a 23% drop in carbon intensity. How great is that? Like, it's pretty remarkable. Some of that has to do with efficiency of equipment that you get, and as you replace older buildings with newer buildings that are much more efficient, you tend to get that. However, most of that is actually from our electricity, which carbon intensity is really dropping. So that's pretty much characteristic around the US as far as they move towards really increasing renewable energy, energy efficiency programs, as well as switching like from coal to natural gas is pretty much a phenomenon around the US. And so really seeing that because of the price signal. So definite drop, and that is just over 4 years. So a pretty significant drop over 4 years, and that trend continuing in our discussions with utilities. So that's great news, the drop there. Transportation, a little different story. That, on the other hand, has gone up in that 4-year period. So from 8.7 million up to 9.3 million. So a 7.3% increase in transportation emissions. And the interesting thing to note here is if you look at the 2016 emissions column, the gap has really widened between what's coming from our stationary 5.9 million, 9.3 for transportation. Now transportation by far is the largest area of carbon pollution from as far as all sources from the citywide. And then our waste, we are increasing our recycling and waste diversion, and so we have seen a decrease as well, that corresponding decrease. Waste is somewhat a small sector because we capture most of the emissions from the landfill, the methane emissions, so it's a pretty small overall. But now if you average all of those together, what's the overall story? The good news, a 7.2% decrease citywide as far as our carbon pollution goes. So really a nice trend. Actually, over a 4-year period, a 7% is actually a pretty good achievement. That is really great to see that decrease. And looking at it, if we were informing that to set a 2025 goal, if you said, well, if in 4 years we do 7%, and we were to multiply that and make it out of 9 years, it would be a 23% over that from 2012 to 2025 would be sort of, which I wouldn't label it business as usual because we've been doing a lot from citywide as far as actions go, but certainly in our current progress and our current attention we've been paying, that a 23% goal is kind of our, where we stand. And so looking at what we're going to the public now on is to say, to inform and provide better information to councils they consider what should our policy, should we be more aggressive, should we do more bold things from a city? What are some of the things that we're not currently doing that other cities are doing that we might want to consider, that this council might want to consider, and so that would actually accelerate our adoption and reduction of our carbon footprint? Like what would those things be? And so it's really to get a general pulse from the public. It won't be, to say bringing any specific program and having enough data for any program in particular, but it just creates an overall sense from the community of how do they want? Do they want it to just be voluntary only, or do they want to see really a mix of voluntary and incentives and policies that are they supportive of those? So we're kind of going out and getting a general pulse from the community. And we're doing in-person stakeholder meetings, going to a lot of the boards and commissions, a lot of significant social media campaign on Facebook and Twitter. We have 12,000 Facebook accounts or more, I think. And Nextdoor has been really popular. As we posted on Nextdoor, got a lot of comments. Public events, we're going to events and getting general public, trying to find some of the unusual suspects to try to say, hey, tell us what you think, what your comments are. And so the overall objective is to give overall support of what are the things, what's really on the public mind, what are the most interesting things that they're considering. And so the initiative coolerphoenix.com has been out now for just 2 weeks, and we have 571 as of right before I stood up here to so responses so far. But we open to see in the thousands by the time the campaign is done. But certainly just in the first couple of weeks, a good uptake. And really want to get, and it's provided some really fascinating and interesting things for someone such as myself as I read them and seeing what the public responses have been. So just to kind of characterize what are the actions we bring forward, there's a typical plan would have a lot of actions, the things that we're already doing, like Transportation 2050. So we're not asking about detail and going back and asking questions about Transportation 2050 or things that, or about our waste diversion or things. We're specifically saying, what are these new things that we do that are different from what we're doing today? And should we also maybe be considering those that accelerate our footprint? So one is uptake of electric vehicles. There's a real opportunity. Manufacturers, there'll be limited supply, and so do we really want to attract electric vehicles to our community? Manufacturers want to only send them out and put them into places where they know there's going to be uptake in sales for the vehicles. So really try to do that, provide a really plan for electric vehicle charging infrastructure and community programs that will really get our community to recognize the benefits. They're zero tailpipe emissions, so a huge benefit to air quality, so a lot of co-benefits for our community, as well as cost savings as far as how much it costs to charge vehicles. Another area is efficiency in new and existing buildings. We haven't really had too many programs around incentives. We kind of said utilities have been doing a great job on that and providing some opportunities, but what are some other opportunities we could do? This fall, we're launching a energy audit for homes with funding from the Department of Energy and looking at what the uptake will that and really inform what are the types of things we could do to really improve efficiency, and should there be incentives that provide to really get people to kind of invest in those types of things, or maybe loans that are possible that we could do. Increase trees and shade. We'll talk about trees. Another item on the agenda later today is trees and shade, but certainly that in the cooling of the city will help reduce energy use and have a definite impact, but also our carbon sequestration can actually store carbon, so it's a really great part of a strategy. And then the last one, options to purchase clean energy. really interesting. Other communities are kind of considering this. One of the interesting survey questions is actually, so far, like we said, would you be willing to pay $15 more on your electricity bill if you could buy 100% clean electricity? And 74% so far have said yes. It's like, wow, way to go, community. So really interesting as people are, and even around the trees and shade, that 46% said they'd be willing to donate to a tree campaign. And so really, as we're asking questions, those aren't so much to say, oh, we need to bring a policy or program related to those, but just that they're really giving a sense of the community's will and saying, no, we not only support these goals, but we're willing to put our money where our mouth is and as a community and say, no, we really value these so much that we'd even pay for them. And so some initial responses that I mentioned, yes, 88% agree, yes, to double the tree canopy, good, so definite is a good idea. And donating to tree and shade canopy would be a tree program, sorry. Another one on buildings, 73% say adopting an energy efficient building code is a good idea, even if homes cost more. And 82% agree, I think the city should require a green rating on buildings so that a home's efficiency is displayed for potential buyers. Interesting, 82% of people, this really resonated with the community, saying, we'd love to see, like on the MLS listings, there's actually a spot to show the energy efficiency rating of homes, but it's not currently populated because so few people are using the HERS score, but really that's a potential for the future that we might want to consider as an option. And people saying they'd be willing to pay $300 more for a home with electric vehicle charging. So some really interesting feedback from the community. So really the options that before that council will kind of consider in the future, should they kind of maintain our current suite of policy options, just continue with what we have kind of on the go. We've got some plans for our tree and shade master plan. We have some plans for Transportation 2050, or should we kind of consider and want to introduce and set a slightly bolder goal and say, look, that'll really require some more creative programs brought forward. So we could either maintain or increase some of these new policy ideas. So just as a comparison to look at other cities, generally it ranges 20 to 33% range. So if we were to set it either at 25% or 30% goal, those would be kind of in range with many other US cities. And there's a few that are bolder that have been at this for a while and have set some longer term goals based back as far as 1990. So San Francisco and Los Angeles. And then 2030 goals is pretty common for a 40% reduction. But actually if we were 30% or so for 2025, we might even be on track for a similar one to those. So we're not too far off. It's in comparison to other cities, it's not really always a fair comparison because what is their energy mix, and places like Palo Alto, they actually own the electric utility and they actually provide carbon neutral electricity already. So it's a lot easier for them to set some pretty ambitious goals when they control the electrical supply and they're buying carbon offsets for all their natural gas. So they're already, a lot of their energy is already covered, so they can set some pretty ambitious goals, but still interesting other cities. So we'd be right in line with many cities as we kind of consider different policy options. So the recommendation for this subcommittee is still continue with our public outreach and kind of have that and present that as here is generally the feedback from the community of the different areas, how much people are interested in electric vehicles and how many are planning on buying an electric vehicle in the coming years, and then use that as information. And so at this point, without all the information at the table, I'd say we're really, that staff would request this subcommittee recommend that council set a greenhouse gas target in the range of 25 to 33% based on continued community outreach.
Thank you. We have one card from Diane Barker.
It's live.
Oh, okay. I need to grow up. No. Okay. One of the biggest ways that you can cut greenhouse gases is through your choice in transportation. And this is housing, and I know that I support many of the things you do. I'd like to see more conversation even on beyond the electric vehicles. I know Downtown Phoenix Partnership is looking now to publicize where we have the charging outlets. it was brought up that maybe, you know, we could even have charging outlets on parking, and so people could come and get free charge, you know, on their electric vehicle. But what I've talked about is that this weekend I was in Scottsdale, and people that were enjoying the football games, you know, said, well, where are you going? I said, I'm going downtown Phoenix. And it was amazing, you know, how many people, and these people, you know, get around, they've got cars and everything, they kind of look at me kind of strange, like, how can you you're going downtown Phoenix, how do you get there? Okay, so now yesterday, Daphne, when I mentioned that to her, she said, yeah, she noticed that also, that people would say, you know, I really don't know how to get downtown Phoenix. So anyway, with all of that, you know, there is a park and ride at Thunderbird. I mean, you wouldn't have to drive your car if we even got private contractors to buzz people down here for events. They do some of it, but to do it more, because if you look at MAG statistics, and Phoenix is half of MAG, is not only particulates come from on-road and off-road vehicles, over half of them, okay? And you're also looking at greenhouse gases. So I'm saying you've got BRT, and ADOT now is looking at the deck park because it is backed up at 2:30 in the afternoon now. So we need to move people.
Wonderful. Thank you. And you did talk about transportation is going to be an important part of this.
Yeah,
as
so certainly this was, I kind of highlighted some of the new programs you might want to consider, but certainly Transportation 2050, that's really looking at changing mode shift, increasing walking and biking, like encouraging that, as well as mode share and transit, very important parts that without that, it'd be really difficult, particularly because of our transportation emissions. And other programs, even looking at our general plan aspirations to build up very important parts of our overall goal to say, build up our urban villages where people can get the majority of amenities within the communities they live, so they don't need to drive on the highways or anything, to actually just go to their local community. Just one stat, very interesting, that we asked the community, if there was a shaded pathway from your house to your local shops, would you walk more than you do now? And 89% so far in the survey said yes. And I think, wow, that's really interesting. Like just enabling that nice, beautiful pathway. And then as well, we asked about canals on that survey to say, if your canals were beautiful and created nice walkways and shaded on the canals, would you tend to go, if they were in your community, would you go and walk on those and bike on those regularly? And 85% said yes. Like, so interesting, just seeing that great opportunity for amenity, at the same time getting people out more walking and biking.
Wonderful, thank you. There were some results in the survey, like on the green pricing program, that surprised me, but the people of Phoenix loving shade is not a surprise.
So the most popular category on it, of all the categories, it was 20% higher pick than any other category, was trees and shade. So
Definitely hear a lot, and given our weather, it is not a surprise. Although I'm very excited about the electric vehicles, I think that could also be an important part of this. Will you talk a little bit about your stakeholder outreach and some of the partners who helped develop the more technical side of this?
So we really went off the model of where our outreach from last time. We actually just took our plan for the 2050 goals and went out to said, okay, well, this is great. We've done this before. So we're starting with the boards, going to each of the village planning commissions, and getting great feedback. So we're doing a little bit of a road show right now. And so very interesting feedback from them. They also very much focused on urban heat and shade as their key priority. But also we'll go to all the key stakeholders, the development community and others from last outreach.
Wonderful.
Madam
And we'll
Chair.
work with the utilities.
Right, I just wanted to point out that in coming up with the data that's before you in this report, we absolutely did consult with APS and SRP about the carbon intensity forecasts that they have done so that we could understand what is reasonable going forward.
Wonderful.
So our 2025 goal is very much informed by what actual carbon intensity. We actually got both APS and SRP to say what was based on your integrated resource plans. What is the long-term? What do you anticipate being for the electrical supply being such a large portion? We're different from other cities that most buildings primarily use electricity, so we can definitely influence our carbon emissions by through making our electricity less carbon intensive.
Any questions or a motion? Councilman?
Question, yeah, thank you. So this isn't a mandate of some kind. We're not saying Phoenicians, you can't drive as much as you are now or anything like that. This is simply an aspirational goal that will be fleshed out later, if I had to sum it up.
So part of this recommendation is to say, yes, let's set a goal, and at the same time, a recommendation to bring forward a plan on how to get there and what that would look like. So that would kind of presuppose you need to first, without knowing where you're going, any road will take you there. But once you've set that line of where this is how we want to get to, then say, okay, what are the options we have on getting there? What are the different things, levers we could use in order to get there? And so, is it incentives based, is it policy based, or a mix of both voluntary incentive and policy that could actually get us there, with several options to say we could consider all of these. So first it's identifying where you want to get to, and then coming up with a plan of, okay, what is the best way to get there based on that, and based on the things we're already doing that'll get us a long way there. Yeah.
So, Madam Chair, so the plan is not in front of us. You're going to come up with the plan. You've identified a handful of things that people would like. I mean, that reminds me that health professionals keep doing studies that show smoking is also bad for your eyes. Do they really need to do that? Yes, Phoenicians would like more trees. That's good information to have, I guess, but as I think somebody said, that's not maybe that surprising. So now if you said you have to pay $10 million for those trees, it might be a little bit of a different deal. You might get a different answer. But be that as may, none of that is fleshed out here. You've done some real cursory work, and at some point down the road, you're going to come back with the actual plan.
We'd like to come back fairly quickly, but certainly to set, should it be...
I didn't say it was a long road.
Yeah.
It's just,
Okay, got it.
some
No, thank you.
length of road later, you're going to come down and tell us this.
That's correct. Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilman.
Thank you.
Any questions or motion?
Motion to approve staff recommendation. Thank you for all your work on this.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. So next up, we move to the jobs portion of our agenda. First up, the housing department's work with education and jobs. We'll welcome our housing director, Cindy Stotler.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. With me at the table today is Judy Reno, to my right, Director of College Depot, Zona Pacheco, Director of Housing Department's Supportive Services section, and Rita Hamilton, Public Library Director. We are here to talk about education and jobs in public housing, and as you are aware, our mission in the housing department is to provide quality, affordable housing and a pathway to self-sufficiency. And the way we provide that pathway is to provide programs to our residents to empower them towards education and economic independence. Both of the programs we talk about today further that mission and assist our residents in improving their lives. In December of 2016, we received a HUD grant called Ross for Education, about $500,000 in a 2-year time period to implement the grant. The purpose of this grant was to improve the educational opportunities for kids in public housing, with an emphasis on high school graduation and college attainment. And in order to meet the goals of this grant, we partnered with the experts in College Depot in the City Library Department. They have an extensive background in a very, very successful program in assisting kids to get into college and completing the paperwork they need to get into college. So I'm going to turn it over to Judy Reno to talk about the program.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. I am so excited to be here to talk about this incredible partnership that we have with the Housing Office. When Zona first called me about this grant, she was so excited because of the amazing alignment with our missions in order to being able to bring the College Depot services out to the housing sites to youth ages 15 to 20 who otherwise wouldn't have access to our services due to transportation issues. And so it's a beautiful alignment. And to introduce the project, we have a short video featuring Elenia Sotelo, our Assistant Director of College Depot, who's leading the Project SOAR efforts on our behalf, and also one of our education navigators, Bethany Neal.
Through the Project SOAR program, the City of Phoenix Housing Department and College Depot at Phoenix Public Library are able to provide low-income public housing residents and their families assistance with the post-secondary process. The benefit of this program is that education navigators are able to assist in English and in Spanish residents ages 15 to 20 years old develop education plans and complete college applications, fill out financial aid forms such as a FAFSA, and ensure that they have all steps necessary to matriculate into post-secondary education.
What motivates me as an education navigator is not only the fact that I come from a family where higher education is of great value and it is instilled in us, but the fact that I am passionate about working with older and younger youth who may not have had the opportunities that I have had. I'm excited to be here and help and be passionate about helping these youth.
In addition to Bethany, we have 2 other education navigators who we were able to hire through the grant, and we also enlisted a team of 7 social work interns from ASU who are all supporting the program, and they are bringing comprehensive education planning to these youth and their families. And in addition to completing financial aid forms, searching for scholarships, college applications, we are also coaching them and mentoring them through the process in order to ensure that they successfully matriculate into their post-secondary education experience and do not get lost along the way through obstacles, which many youth do. Here are the various program goals that we submitted along with the grant. Essentially, we are planning to enroll a minimum of 300 of the 15 to 20-year-olds across all public housing sites, including the scattered sites, and assisting them with their financial aid applications, providing them with information and support through the college readiness and financial literacy process, and also tracking them as they continue through their high school experience in order to achieve success. In addition to identifying all of the youth who are eligible for this program, we are spending the majority of our time doing active engagement with them. I would say one of the most successful areas of our focus is doing knock and talks, where we're walking through the housing sites and meeting with families one by one at their homes. Additionally, we're hosting monthly workshops, various sessions on career exploration, financial literacy. We try to make it fun. We buy pizza for the kids. We bring in guest speakers. We've had some awesome career panels, and we're just trying to really make this encouraging and fun for the youth and for their families. We obviously couldn't do this work without our incredible partners. Last month, we had a site visit from HUD, and we brought all of our partners together to discuss ways that we can best serve our housing youth. And one such partnership that I do want to bring light to is our partnership with the Be a Leader Foundation. They're hosting a huge walk for college this Sunday, and so our education navigators are rallying the youth at their sites and actually driving them in a van to the event, where the youth will be exposed to incredible scholarship opportunities, community resources, and also go to a college fair where they'll be able to converse with universities and colleges from across the country and even around the world, so they can be exposed to all of their many opportunities that are available to them. And before I pass the baton over to Zona, I just wanted to quickly thank both Zona and Cindy. For those that don't know, after the Burton Bar closed this summer, housing opened up their doors to us. And so College Depot, the entire staff and our services are operating out of the Matthew Henson Emmett McLaughlin Community Training and Education Center at 7th Avenue and Buckeye. So housing is continuing to do what they do best, is housing people, including College Depot. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judy. We love having them with us. We talk to them all the time and actually think of new ways to partner with them constantly. So it's a good partnership. Wonderful to have them. So our next program we want to talk about is iWork. This is another amazing partnership that we have with Community and Economic Development, Arizona at Work. And it's the result of a Jobs Plus grant that we received back in September of 2016. It was a $2 million grant. It's a 4-year time period. And the goal of this grant is to increase the income of public housing residents by helping them find jobs or find better jobs than what they have now. We identified the Marcos de Niza community as the recipient of this grant. It had to be one community identified to HUD. And we found a building on site and remodeled it and had a grand opening back in March of 17, where Madam Chair, you came and spoke and did the ribbon cutting. Thank you for that. And we're excited to tell you about the progress that we've achieved with that grant. So I'm going to turn it over to Zona.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. We did write the grant for the Marcos de Niza community. We did brand this as iWork, improving work opportunities and resident knowledge. We also did a partnership with CED Workforce Development. Lisetta Hogan is sitting out in the audience, and she partners with us very closely on this program. Marcos de Niza was identified. There were only two sites that could apply for the job. One was the East Amp, and the other was Marcos de Niza. Since we knew we were going to be looking at it, Choice Neighborhood Implementation Grant, Marcos de Niza was selected. There are 374 households at Marcos de Niza. 281 of those are public housing. 54% of the residents there were unemployed. We faced many challenges there. 52% have no high school diploma, and the rest have very, very low educational levels, high school diploma, and only like about 2% have a bachelor's or an associate degree. We did start the program with goals such as developing employment strategies, building a culture of work, and increasing resident earnings. We hired a program manager. We hired a workforce specialist through CED, a service coordinator, and we also are required to work with community residents that are community coaches. We also have a business partner, which is Phoenix Elementary School District, where we can send our residents to look for jobs that they may have open. A lot of them are entry-level type jobs, such as maintenance positions, working with after-school care, and working in their food services. There are 3 pillars to the Jobs Plus program. These are defined by HUD. The first one is the employment-related services. This is where we do case management and we do job readiness and coaching. We also work with identifying and completing assessments on all of our residents and identifying what their barriers may be. The community support for work helps address those barriers, such as letting our residents get food, clothing and tools that they need for work. We also work with Dress for Success that helps them with interview clothing when they go look for jobs. We provide bus passes for transportation and some minimal child care assistance that we provide for them. The other incentive we have is financial incentives, which is an earned income disregard. So if somebody gets a job and they start earning money, their income is disregarded. That disregard is paid for out of the grant. And what we encourage residents to do with the money they are disregarded is to open up what's called an individual development account and save for money. We really encourage home ownership and that they move forward with that. We have several on-site resources. We have job readiness classes. We have coffee groups where we try and discuss the program with the residents. We do lots of training with our partners, such as financial education. We also work with them on parenting skills. We recently had a program with them on parenting skills. We have a neighborhood network center where they can come in and look for jobs, complete resumes, and apply for benefits that they may need while they're working or going to school and getting trained. We do tutoring. We work with Friendly House, who does tutoring services. And we opened up a makerspace. If anyone hasn't visited this, we have a makerspace that's really kind of a neat place where people can come in and create. We have 3D printers. We're doing some crocheting classes, some sewing classes where people can begin to own some of their own skills and maybe look at even starting their own business and doing some business development. We also work with teens in the makerspace. We work with kids 14 to 20, and we work with Judy with the Ross for Education grant, as well as working with those kids doing internships and looking at staying in school and moving on to college. We have 2 of our students already who are in a dual enrollment program in high school and the community college at Phoenix Community College. Major partners, of course, our major one includes Arizona at Work, School of Social Work, because we have interns in all of our programs that help provide services. The library, Dunlap and McGee Property Management, Dress for Success, Friendly House, Money Management, PRC, Phoenix Revitalization does leadership classes, and I've already talked about some of the other ones. And that's pretty much what we do. If you have questions for me, I'd be happy to answer those.
Wonderful, thank you. The Housing Department has been wonderful about going out and finding resources. We don't make it easy for you, but you've had a lot of great wins on these grants, and want to thank you, Cindy, and your whole team for the leadership and really saying we care a lot about our residents and we're going to find great opportunities for them. It's really cutting edge. I mean, the makerspace is beautiful. It's the kind of place where anyone would want to be, and so many great successes, so many FAFSAs filled out. These are gifts their students are giving themselves that will last a lifetime. So thank you. Any questions from my colleagues?
This is just an update, correct?
Yes.
I just want to thank you for all the work as well. I have seen these programs up close. I've seen people use these programs, and just seeing the excitement. Thank you for everything you do with College Depot and iWork. We just did something in Maryville last week. The makerspace, I think that's a key to the future for many of our youth. Not everyone's going to be an engineer, but they will all learn to problem solve if they are spending time in that makerspace and learning those types of things. I can't thank Rita enough. Thank you for being here. The greatest building that we have that promotes education happens to be a building that we're struggling with right now, which is our library, and we'll get through that. But we have 16 other libraries that are doing a lot of work promoting jobs and education and everything else. So thank you so much for being so flexible and working through that. And of course, Cindy, thank you for housing everyone and continuing to be the umbrella for all of this good stuff. It's exciting. It's definitely moving our city forward.
I do want to note that we have 56 residents that have enrolled, and 41% of them already have jobs. So I do believe the program is beginning to work.
It's education, it's workforce development. It's definitely workforce development. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for that update. Lots of great work happening. We'll look forward to more success stories. As we continue our focus on workforce, we're doing a lot on training, apprenticeships, and employment, and I've had the pleasure of working with Councilwoman Stark, particularly on the union apprenticeship side of this, but there's a lot of other things going on. So we will welcome our executive director, our economic development director, Christine Mackey, up to start us off.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. We are going to continue the conversation about jobs and job training here this morning while we update you on our program, Craft a Profession. Craft a Profession focuses on training, apprenticeships, and a jobs initiative that was approved by this subcommittee back in October of 2016. So in economic development, I can work on a lot of things: infrastructure, real estate, resources, but nothing is more important to the economic development mission of the city as having a quality trained workforce that we can sell to the companies that are considering Phoenix for and expanding our new location. We're particularly interested in those that have high growth, they're in high technology sectors, they're in demand sectors such as construction sciences. So we have been working very closely with this subcommittee on that program that can advance our construction sciences candidates. Here with me today, I have Rob Stinson, who oversees our Business and Workforce Center, and of course Judy Reno, the director of College Depot. I would like to turn it over to Rob, who is going to give you an overview on where we have come in the past year with this program.
Madam Chair and subcommittee members, thank you for the opportunity to present today on an initiative that was approved back in October of 2016. The goal to increase the talent of high growth and high demand construction sciences jobs in the community. The program had three basic objectives during the course of the last year. First, to assess and understand the current industry workforce gaps from a recruiting and incumbent workforce training perspective. Second, to proactively connect youth and adult opportunities in the construction science fields. And third, to increase the partnership with both union and non-union organizations in the community. To accomplish the first objective, we hosted back in March of March 9th, a opportunity for a forum where about 40 attendees got together to talk about what's going on in the private sector with relationship to construction. There were basic themes, a synthesis of those themes that repeatedly came out from that meeting were obviously the need for people and an increase of apprenticeship programs. Second, to increase the workforce experience and on-the-job learning programs in the community, and to build outreach and education programs, increasing opportunities for private sector and education collaboration. And then how to change the thought that construction is a second pathway. To give you an example, recently, if you watch PBS, you'll see a program called This Old House. This Old House has addressed this issue as well, recognized this as a national problem, and created a program called Generation Next. That is a program that helps to build the interpretation of what construction actually means, not only to moms and dads, but also to youth in the community. We're currently planning our next forum in the next couple of months. I'd like to turn it over to Judy to talk about the College Depot component.
Thank you. College Depot at Phoenix Public Library is shining a spotlight on the wonderful opportunities that exist in apprenticeships and trades, and wanted to really shine a spotlight on these incredible opportunities that many youth and families, parents, guidance counselors are not aware of. And so we've been working over the past year to incorporate that and really be proactive in providing this information to our community. And as a result, we had our staff trained, in particular, Robert Olmos, one of our advisors who's been with us for the past 8.5 years. And so he's been thoroughly trained by people in the industry and has thus done, trainings for the rest of our team to keep everyone up to speed and keep us posted on the latest and greatest. And he's also hosting, in addition to one-on-one appointments with individuals who are interested in continuing on to an apprenticeship pathway, he's also hosting various programs, bringing in partners and people from the industry to share their experience and their opportunities, both public events for youth and for adults, and then also in particular for guidance counselors who are really hungry for the information because they know that this is, these are jobs that are required, more now than ever in this growing economy. And so it's something that the counselors are hungry for, and we're just connecting them with the information so that they can then spread it to their students that they work with. We did create a web page on the Phoenix Public Library website highlighting the information and connecting people to the information, trying to streamline it, make it as smooth as possible. In addition to the web page, of course, you can see as we are featuring Robert on the page, we're trying to connect people to that one-on-one appointment or phone call so that in addition to having a referral, they receive ongoing care and support. And so Robert follows up with his appointments to see if indeed it was a good fit for the individual or if they need a different match. And we try to really ensure success of all of the customers that we serve. We also developed a really nice information wall at the Burton Bar Central Library, and so we look forward to having that debuted once again next summer. However, in the meantime, we are providing that content and that information at the Emmett McLaughlin Training Center.
Next, based off of the information that we received from the forum discussion and discussing the gaps, what we heard on a regular basis from the industry was how do we get more individuals interested in apprenticeship programs, but more informed about what the different sciences actually look like. So one of the issues that we experienced were individuals coming into an apprenticeship program, working for a year or two in a specific trade, say as a carpenter, and realizing, hey, I was made and born to become a plumber. And so how do we get that information earlier in the process so they get the education sooner and not have to start over? One of those suggestions from the private sector was how do we create a pre-apprenticeship program? We began speaking with the private sector, creating a program that provided a 2-week classroom experience where the individuals get professional skills, safety discussions, and get a feeling for what the different sciences actually look like. Immediately following the classroom training, they receive an 8-week work experience, a paid work experience, working with local companies. That program, paid for with Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act dollars, provided the individual participants $15 an hour to gain that 8 weeks of experience. During the pilot program, it's the Arizona Highway Construction Workforce Pilot Program. It was combined with ADOT and over 20 different organizations in the current pilot program. All of the individuals that participated were successfully hired, actually before they completed their work experience program. There's just a high level of demand for individuals. The next pilot training program will begin in December, so we're currently recruiting youth and adults into that next cohort program. In addition, we've hosted with the the Joint Technological Education District and the Career Technical Education organizations, we found that we were not reaching out to the organizations enough as far as Arizona at Work. That's the county, the city, and Department of Economic Security and Department of Economic Security apprenticeship programs. So we've created a process where we're actively going out and scheduling time to go out to those education partners and creating either recruiting events or information sessions about apprenticeship programs in a more proactive manner. This is just a little bit more information about the next steps. Some of the next steps that we have are to expand the current pre-apprenticeship program throughout the valley. The first pilot program was specifically looking at youth only. The next generation is going to also add the adult component. We've got an acceleration of recruiting events with the College Depot, Arizona at Work, and the private sector, not only for helping job fair type activities, but also apprenticeship information sessions. That will involve an increased outreach to the CTE programs and the JTEDs through forums and the recruiting events. In addition, the Construction Career Days is coming up in November. We'll be actively working with the private sector to understand exactly how we can assist and come alongside those groups in order to promote. And then, Judy, if you want to talk a little bit more about College Depot.
So in closing, one of our next big steps is to expand our craft to profession sessions, information sessions beyond our current locations. We've hosted them now at Burton Bar Central Library and at Harmon Library, and we look forward to planning events in the spring and reaching our geographical scope to other Phoenix Public Library branches.
Madam Chair, council members, as we move forward, not only are our construction sciences in incredible demand here in Arizona to keep up with the building that's going on of our economic boom, but the natural disasters that we've seen across the globe, Northern California, Houston, Florida, Puerto Rico, are going to draw that construction sciences workforce away from us. And so the more we can focus on driving that next age of construction sciences workforce forward, the better the economy and economic development in Phoenix will continue to be. And with that, we'd be happy to take any questions.
Councilwoman.
Thank you. As you know, this is pretty important to me, and maybe it's because of the world I come from. But, you know, I think college is important for people, but so is pursuing what you really love. And not everyone wants to go to college, may not qualify for college, may really want to pursue a different career. And I think this really shows that we're here to help provide opportunities for the next generation. But I think more importantly, as you pointed out, we're in the midst of reconstructing a lot of our roads, and we just are behind schedule because we cannot find the help to build these roads. So I think it's important that we promote these types of programs to show people there are avenues that you can get employed and have a good, meaningful job. Again, I think what you guys have done is just wonderful. I really appreciate all the work you put into it.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Stark, you were integral, of course, in the event that we had in March. You and Councilwoman Gallego were in attendance and hearing what all of the construction companies were talking about. And to your point, it's not just private sector that's looking for ways to build buildings, it's infrastructure for cities and being able to keep on with our maintenance of providing good quality streets and services for our citizens. So this is critically important, and it's been kind of your guidance, as you said, your position where you come from and understanding how that working with you and Councilwoman Gallego on directing us forward here has been instrumental in where we've gotten so far.
Any other questions?
Just really quick, again, thank you. This is important, and this is the other part of this is the part that I think Silicon Valley probably missed. You know, as the economy continues to evolve, and they're doing a great job in tech, obviously, but we also have to be focused here as well. So I think we're showing strong leadership, and I think we are going to be a more diversified economy for it as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been great. And one of the things that's changed since we last met was the city has now done more on apprenticeships, not necessarily exclusively in construction, but we are trying to build our next workforce. And I think it might be good just so that we can walk the talk. We could track more about how we use apprentices at the city internally, but also on all of our projects. We are now spending billions on infrastructure in the city of Phoenix, and we want to make sure we do that in a wise way that not only delivers for today's generation, but that we're building for future generations so that perhaps we have the skilled workforce we need to go on, and that we also are getting the maximum benefit for our infrastructure spend as well.
Madam Chair, we'll provide a document to you that shows exactly how the city is using the same programs in partnership with College Depot and our Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act dollars.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful, because we actually are training some of the people through WIOA funds that are then working on all of these projects, and we ought to keep that data and make sure we know our impact on the people we are helping. Wonderful, thank you. Next up, we have an ozone air quality update. Oh, and I'm sorry, on that last one, a card from Stephanie Bracken marked in favor, so thank you. Roseanne Albright, Environmental Quality Programs Manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Council members. I also have Joe Gibbs, our Air Quality Specialist, that will help us with this presentation as well. I'm excited today to talk about air quality. You know, it's something that I know we see every day, we breathe every day, and we certainly are working hard to make sure we improve that. Earlier this year, Office of Environmental Programs presented a broad overview of the region's air quality status and efforts Phoenix is undertaking to meet that clean air goal. Today, the focus of this presentation is on one pollutant, ozone. So by way of background, the Federal Clean Air Act established the framework to set health standards and control requirements of 6 priority pollutants to protect human health, including sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, lead, particulate matter or dust, nitrogen dioxide, and ground level ozone. So Phoenix and our region continue to have challenges in meeting these federal standards, and we are designated as a non-attainment for ozone and particulate matter. We continue to work with Maricopa County and state and federal regulatory agencies as well as MAG to collaborate on potential solutions. So for Phoenix, clean air and outperforming federal air quality standards is one of our Phoenix's 2050 goals, as we saw Mark show earlier in a presentation. So ground level ozone, not to be confused with stratospheric ozone, is created by a complex sequence of reactions and interactions. Ozone pollution occurs at its highest levels during our summer months when sunlight and heat cause chemical reactions between nitrogen oxide and volatile organic compounds. And these are resulting from vehicle emissions, from fossil fuel power plants, and fuel handling. So currently, the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, sets the standards and these are evolving as more and more information is collected as to the effects on our health. The 2008 standard has been set as 75 parts per billion. And currently, we are not quite meeting that standard. We have had a couple of what we call exceptional events, and Joe will talk a little bit in more detail what that's all about. However, we do anticipate it is pretty likely we will meet those standards. The second standard is the 2015 standard, which is a little bit stricter at 70 parts per billion. We currently are not meeting that standard, and it's really difficult for us here in the state of Arizona because we do have emissions from out-of-state sources. With regards to the 2015 standard, currently there are some litigation activities that are happening where a lawsuit actually led by Arizona was filed to seek regulatory flexibility in deadlines and give us the opportunity to really look at the requirements when it comes to addressing transport of out-of-state sources. So right now, there are significant programs out there that are working on improving air quality, and hopefully you all have seen a lot of this. Maybe you subscribe to some of the apps. This is the Clean Air Make More campaign led by Maricopa County and strongly supported by Phoenix. The campaign produces education awareness through online tools, shares information, we send out alerts, and really encourages everyone to take action by driving less. So in this particular graph, it shows what we're seeing with regards to ozone in the 1997 standard, which is that orange line, which was at 80 parts per billion, the 2008 at the yellow line, and then the black line is the 2015. What we are seeing is that despite our population increasing, we have seen a 6% decrease in ozone levels. So I'm going to turn it over to Joe to give you a few more details.
Good morning, Madam Chair and council members. As Roseanne indicated, there's two ozone standards binding on the valley here. There's the 2008 standard and the more recent, more stringent 2015 ozone standard. And whether we meet the 2008 standard or not is really a cliffhanger at this point, because let me tell you, we have had two exceptional events. One in California in 2015, it was the lake fire, and in 2017 it was 9 fires raging in Arizona that affected high levels at these monitors and caused exceptional events. Now, exceptional events are provided for in the Clean Air Act when you have situations such as forest fires that are beyond your control. So with that, if you can make a demonstration to EPA and Maricopa County Air Quality Department teaming up with the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality are making demonstrations. One's already been submitted to EPA for the 2015. 2017, they're in the process of making that demonstration that we would have attained the standard for the 2008 standard, if not for those fires. And Maricopa County is pretty convinced, at this point, pretty confident that once they submit those, that there's a good chance that EPA will approve both of those. If you look at the monitors, where those were affected, now let's remember that the standard is met when the rolling 3-year average of the 4th annual high, when you average all those together, is below 75 parts per billion. And those fires were just enough to put those calculations beyond the reach of the standard. For 2015 in yellow, you have the northern one there is Pinnacle Peak, and the southern one is the Mesa monitor. In 2017 in red, we had what's called the super site. It's around 19th Avenue and Camelback. Because of those fires, it put that monitor out of reach. So if we can make a demonstration that fires did indeed affect those monitors on those days and convince EPA, we'll be able to get out from under this standard. But even though Maricopa County is confident that we're going to have a good demonstration to submit to them, what happens if we fail? And the consequences are, it's pretty high stakes. If we were to have high levels and EPA fails or denies just one of those two exceptional events demonstration, and these are demonstrations where there's a pile of paper submitted to EPA, we would go from moderate to serious, and from a moderate classification to serious, you look at, in the blue there, all those steps of the requirements. As you move higher, it keeps adding all those requirements, but really what may be egregious would be the offset requirement, the 1.2 in the circle to 1. If large sources would then have to offset any new additional emissions, for every ton of new emissions, they would have to offset that by finding reductions of 1.2 tons for every ton that they produce. And it's very difficult to find those emission reductions. Also, the threshold for defining what a large source is goes down from 100 tons per year annual to 50 tons. So that's now capturing a whole host of brand new sources and under this really tough regulatory regime. So the economic development consequences of this, you would have large sources thinking twice before they locate to Phoenix under those conditions of the Phoenix area, and any existing source that would want to expand would have difficulty finding those offset reductions. So again, Maricopa County has indicated that they're pretty confident that we can make a good showing to EPA, but it's a cliffhanger at this point. So let's go on now to the 2015 ozone standard. That's the more recent and the more stringent standard that has caused a lot of national controversy if you've been reading up on that. Arizona, the state of Arizona, is party to and leads that lawsuit with four other states. They're contesting the law. They're contesting in this lawsuit the implementation of this new, more stringent standard, because many of the sources that affect Arizona and the Phoenix area come outside the state, California, as well as Mexico. And we would find it very, very difficult to find enough sources locally to control, if not for those sources outside of our control, outside of Phoenix and outside of Arizona and California and Mexico. Also, EPA, in response to that lawsuit, would delay the implementation 1 year of the new ozone standard. Now, the implementation starts when EPA creates this list and publishes it in the Federal Register of the list of all the areas in the country deemed to violate the standard. And behold, from that, there were 15 other states that sued EPA once they proposed that extension, saying that extension in that deadline would affect negatively public health. So EPA, in response to that second lawsuit, pulled back that proposal, and now it's to the original deadline of October 1st, 2017, when they unveil that list of designated areas. And yet today, EPA has not submitted that list, or it's not been published, and it could be published any day. So as we proceed forward and we're looking at controlling ozone, we have, well, first let me go to why EPA supports the new standard. 2.9 to $5.9 billion of public health benefits, and avoids 320 to 660 premature deaths and 230,000 asthma attacks in children. So that new standard is based on science, and as more new information comes forward, they're finding lower and lower levels having more egregious impact for our most sensitive population. How do we control ozone? Federally, it's through the federal tailpipe standards, and then regionally we have clean fuels, we have our vehicle emissions inspection, and also vapor recovery systems on our pumping systems, but now are being replaced by the onboard canisters. The city is taking its efforts into consideration. We're concentrating on vehicles or demand management controls with our 2050 transportation initiative, with also our fleets. 60% of the fuel used in our fleets are alternatives to petroleum, as well as our walkable streets and transit-oriented development. We're also working in the wake of the VW settlement, the lawsuit settlement, and working with regional and state partners for spending that money and building the new electric vehicle future with a robust infrastructure here locally. And that concludes our report.
Wonderful. Thank you for keeping us updated on this. High impact standards.
Happy to take any questions.
Wonderful. It looks like no questions, but we're going to keep you working because we have sustainable purchasing policy next.
Thank you.
Thank you to Joe Gibbs for his work on this.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Council members. I have with me Marina Estrella, Environmental Quality Specialist with OEP, and we have two guests here today that'll take the end of the presentation from Interface, Mikael Davis and Pamela Walker. So today we're talking about sustainable purchasing policy. Some of you may be familiar with it formerly as the environmentally preferable purchasing policy. So what OEP has done over the past year, or maybe even a little bit longer, is collaborated with Finance Department, several city departments, Arizona State University, on how to really refine and improve the policy and the program. And I also want to recognize Jim Campion from Finance, who is here as well, who has been an advisor, a supporter, and maybe sometimes a therapist as we've gone through this process. So in 2007 is when Phoenix City Council approved a resolution which was the basis of the creation of that environmentally preferably purchasing, or EPP, policy and program that focused on the purchase of environmentally friendly products. Phoenix really is a leader in this arena. We've done a little bit of research along with ASU and have found that only a handful of cities really have established way back EPP policies and now moving toward sustainable purchasing. So we have seen some increases in our own program over the years, but we have recognized that involvement of that program is really necessary in order for us to achieve greater success and to really reflect what is happening out there in the industry and to also align with our 2050 environmental sustainability goals. So sustainable purchasing is about more than just purchasing green products. It's really a way of integrating fiscal and social responsibility in consideration of environmental and community stewardship. So it's really taking those three legs of sustainability and putting them together when we're looking at purchasing products. So the goal of our sustainable purchasing policy is to encourage the purchase of products and services that have a reduced effect on human health and the environment when compared to competing products or services that serve the same purpose, while remaining fiscally responsible. We recognize that it is always important, and one of probably the leading factors as we look to purchase products, that what do they cost? Not only what do they cost now, but what are those long-term costs and long-term benefits as well. So right now there are several green product certifications that you may be aware of. Hopefully some of you may have some of these products in your home. I know we do have some in our offices as well. So we have Energy Star from EPA, WaterSense, Green Seal certified, FSC has to do with paper and paper products. So these really are certifications that are done by independent third parties, and you can look for those on several different kinds of products. What we probably see most commonly in our home and in our office are Energy Star computers, of which the City of Phoenix definitely purchases. And then other examples would be Energy Star appliances, refrigerators that you may see in your home as well. So to expand that certification from just simply being green to looking at something more sustainable, we wanted to give you this example. We currently have as a city the WIST contract, and it is for office products. So this has an opportunity to do several things. One, it is definitely a local business, so we're bringing that economic stool to green purchasing, and they are able to provide us affordable products, green products that are at the same or lesser cost than non-green products. So we recently had a expo from WIST just yesterday, as a matter of fact, and one of the things that they did for city employees was to bring the top 10 green products that city folks purchase and provide them as samples and show that the quality of those products is the same, or maybe even some cases better, that to encourage folks to purchase those green products. So in order to update our policy, as I mentioned, we did a lot of collaboration. As you might imagine, OEP is leading the effort, but we're not the only departments that purchase products. There are several large departments that we consulted with: aviation, public works, convention center, and of course with finance. We were fortunate in that we were able to establish a partnership with ASU, School of Sustainability. They were very interested in doing a case study on what the City of Phoenix is doing in the area of green purchasing. So we took it as an opportunity for us to ask them to evaluate our old policy and to come up with some recommendations on how we could improve the policy and improve our program. So as a result, they did identify some barriers and some recommendations, and basically they fell into these kinds of categories: to share best practices across the city, to implement some training, and to expand life cycle costing, so that as folks look at the cost of a product, you can really do an analysis to see that maybe in the short term it might be more expensive, but in the long term it's going to bring us additional benefits, and also to look at what kind of incentives we might be able to create. So one of the things that we heard loud and clear, not only from city departments but also from our ASU partners, is that the policy needs to be as simple and readable and understandable as possible. So we edited it down to make it really the basics, and then added appendices to include product specifications, definitions of all of the terms, and also to include a life cycle cost analysis form that buyers can use as a tool to help them determine those costs. The additional stuff that we did was also to clarify the roles and responsibilities of OEP, finance, and city departments. So just in general, for Office of Environmental Programs, we really want to focus on working on guidance with city departments on sustainable purchasing language that can be used in contracts and scopes of work. And so we partnered closely with Finance Department, and we're working together when the annual procurement plan comes out to be notified and understand which departments are for purchasing items so that we can begin that process to work with them. We also provided an opportunity for 5 buyers from finance to attend sustainable purchase training, and we have 5 buyers that are certified sustainable purchasing professionals. So we hope that that was a good benefit for them, and hope to continue that process as well. With city departments, one of the things that we're working to encourage is the assignment of 10% of the total score when you're evaluating products that go to green characteristics. So it gives it an opportunity for folks to look at that as well. So on the program itself that OEP administers as well, I mentioned the training that took place. We also work closely with the procurement liaisons for each department, who are also the sustainable purchasing procurement liaisons, and we'll be able to train them and provide training on a regular basis. We are developing the top 10 green products list for our WIST contract, as I mentioned. We're also working on it with our WAXI and our Granger contract, so that buyers can go into our e-procurement system and easily see what the top 10 green products are. And we're excited to be able to, now that we have our e-procurement system, we're working on obtaining a green, I'm not sure if it's going to be a leaf or a green check or what it's going to be, but something really cool that will identify that products are green, and it will be able to calculate our purchases. So that's one of the top things that we've had over the years, is the inability to be able to track what our total purchases are and what our green purchases are. So with our new e-procurement system, we'll be able to do that, and that can help us inform where we can make some improvements as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Marina so that she can share with you some of our successes.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and subcommittee members. I am going to talk about our success stories with the sustainable purchasing policy. So WAXI is our sanitary supply and janitorial supply vendor, and we're currently working with them to develop, as Roseanne said, the top 10 sustainable products that they offer. But our top 3 products purchased are green products already, so that is something that, you know, is a positive impact that the policy has had. HP Promo offers educational and promotional materials that you can purchase that are made out of recycled content. Currently, our Zero Waste programs, our Office of Environmental Programs, and our Office of Sustainability are purchasing products from them. But I think the one thing that could show how successful this policy could and is being is our office supply report. This is our WIST report from July 1st, 2015 through June 30th, 2016, and it shows that 43% of the items we purchased were green items. This was before we made the change of copy paper having to be 30% recycled paper, and after the change, the new report shows that 91% of the items that we purchased are green purchase. And again, as Roseanne mentioned, they are as affordable and they really do make the difference in the environment. So.
Thank you. All right, so what we want to do next is to show that success is we have a department that not only on the zero waste side, but also on the facilities management side, Public Works Department, and Tammy Fisher is here to represent Interface assisted Public Works in the installation when replacement of carpet was needed in the Good Building across the street, and we replaced it with what's called cool carpets. And I'm going to turn it over to Miguel to share with us what they'd like to recognize us for. And if you could just press that button in the middle.
Excellent. Thank you, Madam Chair and council members, committee members. So Interface is one of the most, is recognized in all product categories as one of the most committed companies to sustainability in the world. We were a founding advisory board member of the Global Institute of Sustainability here at ASU. So we really try to go above and beyond. And I think it's interesting to note that the foundation of our success is our purchasing policy. If we don't purchase green materials to put into our products, you don't get a green product. And so we're very proud of that. And I think one of the great things is that we aren't a local business. We are a US company. We manufacture in Georgia. We get raw materials from Phoenix because we get both our own products back to turn into new products, and our biggest yarn supplier just opened a recycling center for all kinds of carpet here. So a lot of our yarn actually comes from waste carpet from Phoenix now, and will increasingly do so in the future. 50 new green jobs for Phoenix. It's a great story to be able to tell. And that's really how we imagine our supply chain and our purchasing of the future is how do we have a great local story. We're sourcing fishing nets from the Philippines. We're sourcing carpet from Phoenix. All of these problematic waste streams that suddenly get turned into a beautiful product that you get to put on your floor. So what I wanted to share with you today about Cool Carpet, this is a standard program. You didn't have to sign up for this. You didn't have to pay extra for it. We believe at Interface it is our responsibility to run a business that provides a useful product with zero negative environmental impact. So this Cool Carpet is a program we like to share with our customers just to acknowledge that we couldn't have the impact or make the difference we want to make without you. So Cool Carpet, where we add up, if we look at, we do a whole program to reduce our contribution to global warming throughout our supply chain, working with our suppliers, including our yarn supplier. And anything we can't get rid of right now, we're committed to get as close to zero as possible. We go and invest in other programs. We buy offsets, help a community switch to cleaner fuels, help a community start new sustainable agriculture programs. Those investments then zero out the remainder of any emissions in the whole life cycle of our product. So Cool Carpet here, we like to add up. If we look at last year, 1,052 square yards of carpet purchased by the city of Phoenix. If you look at the investments we made to offset the remaining emissions from the life cycle of that carpet, it's equivalent of taking, for instance, 13 passenger cars off the road for a year, producing 0 emissions. The other figure, and it's not on this one that I like, is the recycled content, which is either anywhere from 66 to 89% of the product weight. That's like having 15 households that sent all of their landfill garbage to us to make carpet for you instead of, which they didn't, but weight, quantity-wise. So really trying to put this in real terms to where we take things that we consider to be a problem, like emissions or waste, and turn them into a beautiful product that you get to use in your facilities. So on behalf of Pamela, your local rep here, myself, Interface, and Jeff Kemp, our longtime Phoenix rep who recently passed away, we want to thank you for your partnership.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Interface is a visionary company, and Ray Anderson has changed so many industries, not just your own. So it's wonderful to have you as a business partner, and thank you for recognizing us. And thank you to Public Works for your leadership and making sure that all our decisions are intentional and well thought out.
Well, I'll just say in conclusion that we really have an opportunity with our new sustainable purchasing policy to really make that difference and make an impact. And OEP will continue to coordinate with city departments and finance to find those innovative solutions and hopefully come to you with more success stories like these. I'm happy to take any questions.
And our condolences to Mr. Kemp's family. We met him, I think, through the green building community in particular, and very sorry.
Amazing man.
Councilwoman.
Is that the carpet? I'm curious. It's just a sample.
Props.
Of what we.
Yeah.
Wow.
So make your carpet a jigsaw puzzle rather than a roll.
It is pretty
Replace
cool.
the sections
That is very cool.
need to be replaced. But this is I like to have props. This is where all the ideas of sustainability get embodied in an actual thing.
Very cool. Thank you for being our business partner and for that great recognition.
Thank you.
And thank you to Roseanne for that update. Continuing to move us forward, the 10% goal, I think, or the 10% green points should make a really big difference and help us use our spending power, which is considerable, to build a greener Phoenix. Grand finale presentation today is Shade and Tree Master Plan update.
Good morning again, Madam Chair, members of council, and I'm Mark Hartman, Chief Sustainability Officer for the City of Phoenix, and with me here today is Richard Adkins, our City Forester, and I will be leading some of the presentation today. And we really wanted to give a brief update on where we are with the Tree and Shade Master Plan, originally adopted in 2010. Its long-term goal is to really double the tree canopy in Phoenix, and so and actually had with it prescribed quite a number of initiatives associated within the master plan of how to get there, what that would look like, and what are some of the things we need to do. So we're going to have two primary parts of our presentation today. The first one being just what's happened so far, what are the things that we've accomplished, and then what are really the next steps, what's happening next, and some of the most interesting things that are kind of moving forward on that. I did want to describe trees, imagine them as a technology. Like you have this new technology that runs on 100% solar energy, the tree. It cools neighborhoods, and it can actually reduce energy use in buildings. And this technology beautifies neighborhoods and increases property values. And it actually has a bunch of more attributes. It cleans the air. Imagine pulling carbon out of the air. Like, how cool is that? And sequesters that carbon. And it can capture stormwater, protect from wind, and support ecosystems as well, and bird habitat. And so really, this technology, we've got to install this technology throughout Phoenix. It's really very clever. And being 100% renewable energy, it's just great. What a great thing to have. So looking at our plan to install this throughout the city, achieving the vision, I'd really like Mr. Adkins kind of go over our initial implementation of the Tree and Shade Master Plan and what its overall intentions were.
Madam Chair, councilmen, the Tree and Shade Master Plan was based on basically three goals. that's to move the city forward, and it was accepted by City Council in 2010. Those goals were 1, to raise awareness, educate; 2, to preserve, protect, and increase; and the third was, of course, to develop a maintainable, sustainable infrastructure. Well, the first goal we've pretty much obtained, and that moves into the second goal. The first goal was to basically get the word out to what the City of Phoenix, the community wants and what it needs, and how trees can play that role. And through a number of international, national, regional conferences, as well as partnerships with the U.S. Forest Service, local NGOs, and our utilities, the city has established a nationally recognized urban forestry program. With that, we've developed a number of community workshops, as well as information sheets and educational programming. You'll notice there's a banner out in front of City Hall that talks about the air quality initiatives and the way trees can provide air quality. And so with that, we moved into our preserve, protect, and increase, which was basically to look at what our resource was. So we put an inventory together and made an assessment to get a valuation of what the urban forest inventory was for the city of Phoenix. And what we found out is of our 93,000 trees that the city maintains, brings about a value of $7.8 million annually to the citizens of Phoenix. So with spending approximately $5 million through all the departments on tree maintenance and planning, we actually have a return on our investment for the citizens of Phoenix. With that, we developed canopy maps. We made information available to all of our citizens. We developed best management practices to help us moving forward, because as you know, the Tree and Shade Master Plan was an unfunded initiative, so we kind of just made use with the resources that we did have. And since the implementation of the Tree and Shade Master Plan, we've kind of maintained a balance. We remove about 1,600 trees a year due to natural senescence, damage, and storms. And we plant about 1,600 trees a year. So we're maintaining a balance of while we preserve and protect, but now we're looking forward to increase going forward with and developing further partnerships. Now, both of those goals lead into our sustainable, maintainable infrastructure, where all departments in the city are working together. And you can see with new initiatives and policy that's taking place, tree and shade language is being incorporated, and that's where we're going to go from here. Just part of our educational process, we put these price tags up on trees in some of our parks. It kind of just gives you what the average tree is. You know, this is mesquite in Canto Park. It just shows that this tree brings $201 worth of value to the citizens of Phoenix on an annual basis. And then on the back side, you know, we break that down to carbon reduction, stormwater, energy savings, property value, just to give a little bit more information on what the value and the importance of trees are to the community. Like I said, we've done a resource analysis. We've provided a canopy assessment. Our average canopy now is between anywhere from 7 to 16%, depending on what part of the valley you are in. So we've put up a shade canopy map to help us decide, you know, where we would do better planting projects might be more appropriate. Through neighborhood services and the AmeriCorps Vistas program and the Love Your Block program, there's been a lot more community engagement and tree planting programs there. And we've also engaged in a pilot program with ASU where we are planting trees, and ASU is providing us dollars for carbon credits, and those dollars will be put forth to future maintenance. This is a first iteration of a community map that we had put out for the citizens to look up. This is widely available on the internet. Anybody can look it up. You can drill down to each of these dots and it brings you up what the tree is, gives you a map of the tree, and breaks down the individual benefits of each tree that for the citizens in the city of Phoenix. We have a new iteration of this project that will be out within the next couple of weeks. So it's going to be the same basic information. It's just going to have a new look and be a little bit more interactive for the citizens.
And as far as, thank you, Richard, I do want to recognize his reputation in both statewide and nationally and throughout the region as being a real expert and advocate for trees, and is certainly known incredible respect as I've spent my time here in Phoenix of people pointing back and saying, oh, and you know, Richard Atkins, he's really knowledgeable and really knowledgeable, and also recognize Inger Erickson here from Parks has pretty much led the effort from on trees, on tree canopy citywide. And so really I want to thank sort of bringing that forward. And we have, I did want to talk about two particular projects, very interesting, a cool urban spaces project that looked at if we actually achieved our goal of a tree canopy, would lower the daytime cooling of 4.3 degrees citywide. So we could lower it, and really, particularly as you think of the hotter days, that's a pretty significant drop. And actually one of the studies at ASU studied two neighborhoods just 2 miles apart, and there was a 13-degree average surface temperature difference between those two neighborhoods. And so really saying, well, I think we want to move towards that cooler one, really to look at that of how do we do that, particularly in parts of Phoenix that really have very limited canopy at all, and so are very much that hotter type of neighborhood. And so this really speaks to, independent of this, we kind of have another overlapping project, which is looking at addressing urban heat, and we plan to bring that to the subcommittee in the future of looking at what are we trying to do around lowering overall urban heat. So this is specifically related to trees, and so we're just talking about that here, but definite trees can really bring a great attribute of cooling our city. So the next steps, we really want to brief you on really what's happening on this. So currently we have sustaining our current urban forests, like recognizing as kind of described, we're just treading water on kind of replacing ones that are lost in storms, but not necessarily even always in the same place. So we're really looking at how to change our operations in our streets and in our parks to really make sure that as trees are lost to storm damage, we're really trying to think of replacing those in situ where they make sense, or putting actually more appropriate trees in those places. And so partnering with utilities as well on trying to, as a tree replacement program. So as we're kind of getting more appropriate trees underneath power lines. And so some really interesting projects to kind of start growing our canopy and certainly making sure that we're maintaining and keeping up those street trees. Because historically, there's just been no money to replace them in the past. So we've got to sort of thinking about them differently. And secondly, to create a healthier planning team that, you know, as I described earlier, the public, highly interested in the topic of trees, but also so many partners. The Nature Conservancy, for example, is very much saying, how can we partner together to really, and planting healthy air came from actually a study by the Nature Conservancy. We're going to look at that of how can we bring together all the interested parties to really come up with a plan to really engage the community on a very, very citywide program. Enhance tree-wide sort of inventory, look at some mapping technologies. We have some great mapping opportunities available from data to try to build some of that better understanding of our canopy. And one of the things that Nature Conservancy and ASU are looking at, how can we bring a major funding partner forward who could actually contribute to actually doing a significant tree planting effort in our city. Certainly from ASU, looking at wanting to be a carbon neutral university, you know, in orders of magnitude of $500,000 or $1 million in tree investment could actually make them as a carbon neutral university. So saying, you know, we're happy to take, you know, help you get there, as well as many major corporations US-wide. So they want to engage corporations. And one of the things we're thinking about is if we could get a major funder to support the tree planting and then having the carbon offsets pay for the ongoing maintenance of those trees. It'd be a perfect partnership that is the carbon value of maintaining and checking that inventory is used to kind of offset the value of maintenance. So that effort is certainly something that we're looking at. How can we bring that here? You know, millions of dollars worth of investment in trees. And then the last area is looking at policies and procedures. There's a number we really need to look at of what do we do around developments. We kind of right now, as developments are built, look to have you know, trees, make sure they're there at the time it's built, but nothing on the ongoing basis. So what can we do around those policies in the longer term to ensure those trees stay there and are maintained? So really some great initiatives. Just wanted to provide that update to this subcommittee that we're doing lots of things around trees and very exciting. And I would certainly around the bringing together all the department heads to say, how can we together, solve this conundrum of really enhance our canopy? How can we, leverage our various skills and opportunities and budgets to kind of do that? And so that's been very much a conversation led by Deputy City Manager Karen Peters, very much to bring them all together as a convener of those conversations. So great opportunity. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Councilwoman.
It's with regards to development and landscaping. In my career, I've seen that they're willing to put up the trees, but eventually the trees get in the way of visibility, of signage, of actually seeing the store. So are you talking to the development community about that? Because again, it's about marketing their businesses, and sometimes shade trees get in the way. And I'm not advocating for them. I know I've seen it in my career. They just will cut it back because no one can see the sign.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know what kind of conversations you're having, but I think, that's important to talk to them about.
Well, I'd really love someone who's in the day-to-day hearing of these opportunities describe, if you could present to that, Richard, just answer that question.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Stark. Basically, that's a species selection, and I think we need to be more intelligent with our design and our species choice that will fit within those, sign parameters. And I do work with development planning and their planners pretty much on a daily basis to try to make sure that message is caught.
Perfect. Thank you.
And one of the other things we're certainly looking at is what is the original amount of soil and things that are there when trees are planted, and is there sufficient for that tree to maintain and be, so actually, should we go to 75 cubic feet around that tree when planting them or more to really give it a better chance of survival as well?
And I think the downtown subcommittee is still looking at tree standards and how we can work with development standards to improve tree cover on that area. So I had not seen our new tool. When you go to city council conferences, you see everyone else's tool for tracking trees, and I didn't realize ours was so advanced, so thank you for sharing that. That's
Very well.
And I would love it if we could look at, there's grant opportunities like heritage grants with the Parks Department. I have personally tried and failed with tribal 12% grants for trees, but I do feel like there should be more opportunities for funding out there to really pursue this, because it, as you articulated, makes so much sense, and it's one of the things pretty much that unites Phoenicians, is we, particularly in the summer, like it to be a little bit cooler. And that 4 degree difference could really pay dividends for us.
Yeah. And it was inspiring seeing that, 46% of the surveyed say they even contribute to donate to a tree campaign, that people are really serious, that they say, no, this is something we value and recognize as who we are as a city. And so it was really heartwarming to see such a vocal way of demonstrating that they're committed.
Wonderful. Thank you for that presentation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We have one call to the public from Greta Rogers.
Is it on?
Yes.
It's on. Good morning. It's nice to see you all again. I came here because of this infamous scathing article on Sunday's paper about one of the oldest housing projects in this city, Eastlake. I served on the Housing Neighborhood Commission for 7 years, 2000 to 2007, when Phil Gordon fired me because I spoke out against his Ponzi scheme for the City North garage, none of which ever materialized because we went into a major recession. This is a moral stain on the face of the city of Phoenix. It's inexcusable, it's untenable. These people are living in the equivalent of a garage. These are concrete block walls shaped like bricks. There's no interior wall with insulation between the exterior and the interior, which around here is drywall. And it is pretty much across the country today. Plastered walls, I think, have been out for almost as long as I am old. Aspirational and intentional is not the same. We cannot let people be living like this. I wouldn't let my pet live like this. And I doubt if those of you who may have pets let them live like this. I want a plan and money for this problem in these 3 housing projects. How do we get that damn thing to stop? Because I sat here for 2 hours and I'm not going to shut up right now. Can you stop it, Kate? Thank you.
And I would...
This needs to have emergency plan with funding and execution to begin within the next quarter, no later than 6 months. This is inhumane.
And I would encourage you to read the minutes from our last meeting where we spent almost the entire meeting on issues like this.
Well, then why did this come out?
Well, we still have to implement. I'm sorry, we will have this on a future agenda. We should not.
What is your plan for implementation then? What time frame are we talking
Our
about?
housing director is not here, but we have the choice in.
What time frame are we talking about?
Madam Chair, I know that we've spent some time talking about the Choice Neighborhoods Initiative, and I'd be happy to have some time with Ms. Rogers to talk about the grant opportunities that we're pursuing to fix this issue very specifically.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Make this a priority for each and all of you. This is not hope and maybe. This is health and safety and humanely essential.
That concludes our call to the public. Do we have any council member requests? With that, we are adjourned.